You're listening to the Self-Made is a Myth, Make a Difference Together show with your host, Coach Tim Campsall, where we talk with successful business owners to hear the stories of their journeys in building their successful businesses. And more importantly, we recognize the folks who help them excel because we know that achieving business success is not something we can do on our own.
Hello, everyone. This is Coach Tim Campsall, and I'm excited to have a fellow business owner from Indiana with us today. Something unique about my guest is that he enjoys the beauty of the natural landscapes. In his downtime, he enjoys spending time with his wife and children, doing various things that we're going to have him share with us here in a few minutes. And the thing that he's most proud of is building a successful business from scratch and then having the ability to have that change his perspective on the present and the future and the things that he's doing to build his legacy. It's my pleasure to welcome Caleb to the show today. Hello, Caleb.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I am awesome. Thanks for asking. Well, hey,
Good.
Let's start with having you introduce yourself. So tell us your full name and a little bit of your personal story, like where you were born and live and about your family and hobbies.
Perfect. Well, I'm Caleb White. I'm 30 years old, and I'm a native of West Virginia. It's where I was born and raised, and so go Mountaineers. And then when I was 18, I moved to Columbus, Indiana, and so my wife was originally from here. And so we've been married 10 years this year, and we have 3 kids, Marty, Jensen, and Jet. So they keep us busy, with the business as well. Initially I had gotten into the glass industry kind of by mere coincidence, I guess you could say. So for a local company I was working, and so I worked for them for a couple of years, and then I transitioned to a company in Louisville, Kentucky, and worked for them for a few more. And so kind of during this phase, there was kind of a few light bulb moments, a lot of traveling involved. And so that's when I made the decision very slowly to start White's Innovative Glass. And so here we are. That was 2019. Like I said, it was kind of a gradual play on our end. So I was still working for Strong Tower at the time. And so in 2021, I pulled the trigger and started full-time for myself. And so it's been an uphill climb from there, but the best is yet to come.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. That's awesome. So in your intro, I mentioned that you enjoy the outdoors and doing things with your family. So what are some of the hobbies that you guys like to do together?
Well, oddly enough, it's funny. I'm from West Virginia, and my favorite place to go back is West Virginia. So a lot of times on free weekends, you will find us somewhere in West Virginia. And so we like to go back and hiking or just really just chilling out. Not saying I don't like the beach, but I love the mountains. There's just something about it that's rejuvenating. So that's usually where you will find us, is somewhere back in the hills.
Yeah, fantastic. So Caleb, is there a funny story that your family likes to tell about you that you'd be willing to share with us today?
Oh, there's a lot, but probably, well, I'm going to say that, it all involves work. So usually, dad's gone when they get up, and when we go to bed, dad's gone. But on the funny side, if they want to spend time with me, they're usually coming to the office, and so they know that usually involves work. But that's good. We got to teach them young. So it's funny. My son, he's just kind of grown accustomed to it. So usually now all of the staff laugh that when he comes in the door, you don't even have to tell him. He goes straight to the closet, gets a broom out, gets some window cleaner, and he gets to work. So he knows, if dad wants me to come to the office, I'll be working. So now my daughter, on the other hand, she's a little, we're working on that side of her, but she wants to be on payroll. She wants to be on payroll. So I always tell him, my son will say, Dad, when are you going to put me on payroll? And I said, well, we pay you room and board. So room and board. So they always get a good kick out of that. They always get a good kick out of that.
So Caleb, tell us, How did the business come about, and at what point did you have the confidence that you could run your own business?
Yeah, that was a challenging one. So, you know, when I was working for Strong Tower, like I said, I worked, we traveled extensively. And so we still do as well as White Innovative Glass, but, I had younger kids. And it was amazing to me just all the connections that you meet,
Mm.
and you realize how busy that, everybody is. And so it got to the point where a lot of these companies, they were so busy that they were turning down a lot of, I'll say smaller jobs. And so in 2019, like I said, um, I just kind of started putting some feelers out there with some general contractors that we knew locally, and then some out of state, and started really small. So I think our first job we got was one, 4x4 storefront window, and there's a lot to it. So we just wanted to see, what all is involved behind the scenes, because for years I was never in the office. I was always out in the field, so that's a huge transition of going from being in the field every day to all of a sudden, okay, I have my business. So we just started small and grew and established these relationships with these different general contractors. So it really grew very quickly, faster than I had anticipated. So, like I said, I was still working for Strong Tower at this time, and the nice thing about that is they were very helpful, and they kind of had my back, and if I had questions, they would kind of assist me. So, in 2020, we'd finished a project in Nashville in the summer, and so I took a few months off. And they had called me back in December and said, "Hey, we're starting a job. Would you be interested in coming back?" So at the time, I was still, it's a really tough decision to say, okay, I'm going to go work for myself,
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So you go from that comfort zone to the uncomfortable zone. And so I did go back, and that lasted about a month. And it seemed like in January of 2021, it took off.
Mm.
And so really at that point, I knew I had to make the decision of, you know, um, which path do we want to take? Do we want to pursue the business, or do we want to stay in our comfort zone? And so January of 21, I pulled the trigger, left them, and it's been full time ever since. So um, it all has been, it's been a crazy learning curve, but for the good, you know what I mean? So, and even since then, we've experienced, exponential growth, and, added significantly more team members. So it's fun. I love it. It has its challenges, but it's worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah, the thing that nobody tells us before we go out on our own is that the school system taught us how to be an employee, didn't teach us how to be a business owner, right?
You're correct. You're
And
correct. Yep.
and
You just the do's and don'ts. They don't tell you that there are wrong answers, and there are. Honestly, I mean, that's how we learn. Is we do things, and oh well, next time, next job, next bid, whatever. Then we know. And so
Yes.
yeah, that's a great point that
Yes.
they lack in that area.
Yeah, and the first couple of years can be, drinking from the fire hose of learning all of this stuff, right? Of
Yes.
you mentioned, being out in the field all the time. So yeah, coming in and actually running the business side, right, there's a lot of things that we just have to, learn by fire drill, because it doesn't slow down all the things we
No.
need to do to run a business.
No, it doesn't. And what's crazy is, this kind of came back twofold to me, but when I was in the field, and I think this is natural, but I used to think, what are these guys in the office? What do they do all
Uh-huh.
day? And like I said, that came back twofold because when I started, it was just me. And so, between the bidding and the submittals and the fabrication, because we fabricate all of our, material, and then the install part. And so it becomes overwhelming very quickly.
Yes.
And so you kind of realize that that's where team comes into play. It is not a one man job.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about the company. What's the name? What do you guys do? How do you help people?
So we're White's Innovative Glass, and like I said, we're based out of Columbus, Indiana, but we travel extensively for our commercial work. So we specialize in, I say building envelopes, so storefront curtain walls, panels, kind of on the light side. I try to stay away from panels, but We do interior partitions for office. We do, mall fronts. So we've done some Nikes, American Eagles, A&Fs. We've done a significantly large building down in Nashville. That was curtain wall. And then on the residential side, we do home replacement. We do screen replacements. We do, if you're mowing, bust out your glass, we can replace that. And then what's nice is when we moved into our new facility, we also offer custom in-house glass cutting. So, if someone walks in and says, hey, I need a 48 by 48 mirror, we have a staff that can quote it, cut it, and you're out the door usually the same day. So that's a nice feature for a lot of people. So we try to hone in on that, that's the world we live in, that people want instant gratification.
Yes.
So, a lot of times if it's tempered glass, we have to order that because we don't temper it in house. But, if it's something that we can do in house, that's really our goal, is how fast can we get it out and, also remain good quality. So, which kind of brings me to a point of, that was one of the things that kind of pushed me to start the company is, a lot of these jobs, and it's really not the glass companies, but, I just feel like it's the day and age we live in, that people want things so quickly that they don't care about quality.
Yeah.
And so I kind of noticed a pattern of a lot of these companies that it's all about speed, quality, doesn't matter, we'll go back 15 times. And so, I kind of had an epiphany moment that, what if we could get in, and whether it's cutting a piece of glass in the shop or installing a 20-story building, or just a office partition, what if we can go in and do it right the first time? And so we've learned that people, that just goes so far, with people love, and granted, we still have issues, that's to be expected on any job, but I think by doing it just correctly the first time, and actually caring, it's amazing how far that goes with people, that you actually care. So that's one thing, between speed and quality, we try to keep them together.
Yeah,
So
that's fantastic. Yeah, you're so right that I hear that a lot from people, especially in the trades type businesses, where that simple follow up and follow through and do what you say you're going to do has kind of lost its way. And so
yeah.
just providing those basics, it helps companies stand out.
Yes, it does. And it's amazing, like I said, how far it goes with people. And it's sad that that's kind of lost its luster, but we're trying our best to bring it back.
Yeah.
So
Good for you. Hey, Caleb, share a story where someone pushed you or inspired you that you could do it, even though maybe you didn't think that you could, and the impact that person had on you.
That's I've got a few people. So, one, I'll use, this may sound cliche, but I'll use my dad. So I'm the youngest of five kids. And so I've got three older sisters and one older brother. And, but, growing up, my dad always, and my mom, they always just said, hey, if you want it, roll up your sleeves and go get it. And so that is one thing that they really instilled into all of us kids. And, I can remember back from my earliest memories that, we worked as a family. We worked. So whether it was at the house, at the church, we worked. And so that was just kind of, like I said, instilled into us at an early age. So, then when I moved, my dad worked the same job for years and years and years in a factory. And so he was never a business owner. But, when I moved from an early age, really, I always knew that I wanted one day to work for myself, but I never knew just what. But here we are. And so along the way, I've got some other, I'll use Benjamin Finn at Strong Tower. So he's one of them that kind of had a lot of encouragement. And then there's a guy here in Columbus, Indiana, who has a very similar story. He's in real estate, not glass, but worked at Cummins, he worked his way up and kind of went out on his own. And it was just a one-man crew. And so now today, he's got 8 or 9 employees, probably more than that, and just is very successful. And so the key thing with him, we've all met, everybody flips houses, right? It seems like nowadays. But again, where he comes in differently is the quality and work and his communication are part to none. I mean, they're out of this world. So that has really just driven him to success. And he's not a quitter. So that's one thing. And it's funny because he's definitely a mentor of mine. So, when I'm going through something, I'll say, hey, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah.
And he says, just press on. It's tough at first, but eventually, and I've had a lot of people tell me this, that, somewhere along the way, there's a change, right?
Yeah.
And so we're really close to that. And so, but those people, I appreciate, both, like I said, I'm not sure a lot of people use their dad, but between him,
Yeah.
of driving those, work ethics in me, and then, I'll use Keno and Benjamin and several. I mean, there's a lot of people that have just had a huge impact on my life. And there's a guy back in West Virginia that same thing. I'll touch on this too a little bit. That when I started the business, I get asked two questions, and it's funny because all of my office staff, they laugh about it. The questions I get asked are, "Does your dad own the business?" Because I'm 30, and I look
Yeah.
younger. So does your dad own the business, or oh, well, your parents must have money. And so no, my dad does not own the business. But I always tell people that my parents, they gave me a good work ethic, and so I always refer back to roll up the sleeves and get it. But a lot of people, they don't see behind the scenes of when I was starting the business. I was working full time for a glass company and had several other side jobs as well to kind of get the ball rolling. So, which takes me back to the guy I was talking about in West Virginia. He worked in a factory and started a real small restaurant. And so it's funny, his wife would work the restaurant during the day while he was working in the factory, and then he would go and work at night. And from there, I mean, just a crazy work ethic. And so now, they're older folks, and but they've just been so successful in everything they do. So, to this day, they have several businesses. Obviously he gave up the factory to pursue the businesses. But between all of those people, it's just it really tells you that the sky is the limit. So if they've done it, so can we. So can we.
I love it. Hey, Caleb, what's been your biggest learning as a business owner?
Team, having the right people in the right places. So I've learned pretty early on, and I kind of learned the hard way, that hiring, everybody thinks hiring is easy, right? Just put out some feelers and people they'll just come to you.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. Honestly, I don't know if this is good or bad. You tell me. But I think really up until this year, we've had a big turnover rate. We've had a lot of people come through the doors, but we're particular, and it really goes back to the quality and customer service, like I talked about. If we're telling people that, hey, we're going to be here on this date, whether it's a commercial job or residential, we want to carry through on that, right?
Yeah.
And so that has been my biggest challenge, my biggest learning curve of having the right people. Whether it's from fabrication, whether it's an office manager or a vice president, or even just an installer, making sure that they have our core values, right? So that's one thing that we always have when we interview our core values. Hey, this is what we believe as a company. So we kind of expect people to, we don't want you to meet 5 out of the 7. We want you to meet 7 out of the 7.
Yeah.
And so since we've initiated that, it's really amazing, how far, and leading by example as well.
Sure.
How far. So, for myself down, we expect the same thing out of everybody. And so, once I learned that, again, kind of a light bulb moment. And so now we've got a great crew, and obviously we continue to add, but we just take it a little slower. So that's been my biggest challenge. That's been my biggest struggle of, the right people in the right places.
Yeah. You mentioned making sure that they're aligned to your culture, your values and your beliefs. So the whole idea of hire slow and fire fast, right?
Yes.
We've all, and you alluded to it, we've all made the mistake of hiring somebody who was not a good cultural fit, and then seeing the impact that has on the entire organization. Right? And
Yes.
so
It's kind of scary at how, powerful it can be.
yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, and, again, I always tell, my team, I say, I can't, we make bad decisions. Okay. We're human. And so sometimes it's hard to vet every little thing in an
Yep.
interview process.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, I can only point the fingers back at myself, but
Yep.
that's where we address the issue. And, and we try to be gracious. I mean, there are certain situations where, hey, maybe the other company you work for operated like this, but we do not.
Yep.
And then, there are some people that they're just stuck in their ways. So they're just not a good
Absolutely.
fit. So we definitely learned the hire slow, fire fast. And thankfully, most of the people, this is really amazing that once you build a good culture and a
Yeah.
good team of people, um, it seems that, when you bring in someone who is not a good fit, that they tend to weed themselves out. So that's
Yes.
kind of beneficial to us.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That they
Yes.
show up. I don't know what they expect. We come to work. But
Yeah.
we've had issues, but it's amazing that when people show up, maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a day, and they figure, hey, this
Yeah.
is not what I signed up for. This is not for me. So that's kind of beneficial.
Yeah.
If
I,
you ask me, in my
yeah,
opinion.
indeed.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
the problem kind of solves itself.
Another tip for folks listening to help with that is in the actual ad, right? So you can write in your value statements or your culture statements into your ad and say, hey, we're looking for people who align to these principles. If this
Yes.
is you, right, apply below. And
Yep.
people will self-select out. People will read that and go, oh no, that's not me. I don't want to be
Right.
part of a company like that. So
Yes. Yeah. And it's amazing how well, and you know what? When we started the company, obviously I had core values, right? Of this is how I want my company to run.
yeah.
Um, but I never really communicated that. And that's another huge thing in business that, as well as I do, that communication to the customers, to every employee down the line, it makes or breaks it. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And so every aspect of communication is so important. So, and that's one thing I failed on is I did not communicate like, hey, these are our core values. So
Yeah.
we rolled those out, and it's amazing, like you said, that people, they left in groves, and
Yeah.
then the good ones stayed. And
Yep.
so it's funny when I rolled them out, this sounds funny because, again, it's a learning curve that
Yep.
I never thought I would have to tell people, hey, we have core values. We have values here at our company. But you do.
Yep.
And so when I presented them to everybody, I told them, I said, hey, listen, at my household, these are the same values that we operate by, integrity, honesty, treating people with respect and quality. And, whatever you do your best. And, it may not be perfect, and we'll help you,
Yep.
between the team, we'll make it perfect. But, I said, this is what we instill in our children and how our household operates. So our business will be the same way. And like I said, it's amazing. It's amazing how, the good effect it had on the
Yeah.
business. And it just
Yeah.
kind of motivates people and inspires people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people want to know the rules, right? They want to be part of something that's bigger than them. So the more we communicate about the vision and the mission and the culture, it helps enroll and inspire people to say, hey, yeah, I want to be part of that. And I feel like I belong because those values are my values. And hey, yeah, it makes a better overall company because people
Yes.
understand that, they're part of something, bigger than just showing up and punching the clock.
Yes. Yeah. And, that's what I always tell people too. And, you know, when I first started, just the culture of a team, it's amazing.
Mm.
Again, I use myself as an example that, as much as I would love to say that, hey, I could do this all myself, not possible. It's a team effort from every aspect, from the bidding to the installation to billing, submittals. I mean, all of it. And so I think between the core values and then also being a smaller company,
Mm.
we always tell people when we interview them that, we have really the sky is the limit. So, if you want to be here the rest
Right.
of your life and grow with us, that's great. We'll make that happen. And then, some people, they don't, they're comfortable where they're at.
Yeah.
So they're fine to be in the field or whatnot. So I think, again, which goes back to the communication part. I mean, we've all worked for companies that I call it lip service. They'll tell you
Mm.
what you want to hear, and oh, we've got plenty of room to grow. And so, and again, kind of one thing that drove me to start my own business that, I just felt stagnant in what
Yeah.
I was doing, and I wanted to, I was young. I wanted to progress and do more. And so I think by communicating that to people, they will give you their 110%.
Yeah.
by being upfront and by following through. And so that's most certainly stood true with us and our company.
Fantastic. Hey, you already you alluded to challenges a little bit, but we know that business success doesn't happen in isolation. So tell us about, a challenge that you had over the years, and maybe a fellow business owner or a colleague that came alongside you and helped you through that.
Um, yeah, I'll circle back on just starting. So we started this from scratch. I mean, just no help, I mean, just started from scratch. We just dove in knee deep. And so along the way, just touching, I'm going to call out Tom Smith here in Columbus, Indiana. So he has a glass company. And so he is, just a great guy. It's funny that in our trades, really any business, it's kind of sad how everybody's in competition, which yes, we are. But at the same time, there's plenty of work out there.
Yeah.
So Tom Smith in Columbus, been around for years. And he is one guy that has just helped me tremendously, whether it's a question about pricing or hardware or employees or whatever. I mean, I really respect that aspect that I can text him and say, hey, Tom, I'm in this situation. What would you do? And he's always quick to respond and say, this is how I would approach it. And so, and then as far as a challenge, I'm going to go back to the team part. And that's where, my friend Keno, and he's the guy I was telling you about here in Columbus that worked at Cummins and progressed to real estate. So wise beyond his years. So, anytime I have issues I really struggled with the team part for a long time. And that's when I felt I was in isolation. And, again, I needed people. I couldn't do it alone. So I kind of felt desperate that I was grasping for straws. Yeah. You want a job, you can have it. And so we talked extensively, time and time again about, hey, I'm having these issues with team members. And what I love about Keno is he won't beat around the bush. He's just fire, or they're not a good fit.
Yeah.
And so, and why that may sound tough to some people, it's business. And so,
yeah,
it's nice to have that mentorship of people like that who have been in the trenches, they've been in the same situation. Yeah. And so between those two guys, they've helped us tremendously with our errors, of building a team, I should say. Yeah. So, and I know I'm touching on the team a lot. Like I said, that is honestly, it's been my biggest challenge. I mean, everything else is just a smooth flowing, well-oiled yeah. machine. And like I said, I don't want to, that the people we have in place now it's really a godsend. And it's amazing how, I'll use one of our employees. When I first started the business, I'd reached out to him and said, hey, the guy's just got great character. I mean, just a great work ethic. And so he was the first person I talked to, and I said, hey, I want you to be a part of the team. And so long story short, he did not come on the team, but we got him this year. And, nice. As we continue to grow. So that's been a game changer for us of just, I guess kind of sticking it out and proving to people that, hey, we'll be here for a while. So join the team and let's grow.
Yeah.
So
I love earlier you mentioned there's more than enough opportunities and work to go around. So the difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset, right? So what's cool about the example you shared is your competitor is helping you, right? So the idea, we call that co-opetition, right? Of you're my competitor, but there's more than enough work out there, and if we share stories and help one another, we just make the industry better.
Right. Well, that just goes such a long way with me because again, I'll go back to when I first started, I had never been in the office. I had never bid a job in my life. And so, trying to get, all of this together, it's a lot. And so, as much as I would love to say that, hey, I had a team of people guiding me through, I really didn't. But between, these guys I mentioned, I mean, if they would have said no, I'll use Tom Smith and, something minor. I'll use a hardware example. Hardware in our industry is super hard to get. So that's one question. I was really struggling on that aspect. We couldn't be competitive in our pricing because I couldn't find a vendor to sell me hardware. And so again, that was a conversation I had with Tom. And so, again, that's to me, that's just so respectful
Yeah.
Because most companies I could reach out to and they would probably tell me to kick rocks.
Yeah.
We'll
Right.
take that business. We'll take that business. So kudos to Tom. I respect that, through and through.
That's awesome. Caleb, as you think about the next 1 to 3 years, what's your number one priority or the challenge that you see in terms of achieving your goals?
1 to 3 years. So, I'm definitely a visionary thinker, and I'll go back to communication. That's where I kind of had to rein that in with my team and say, okay, I know my visionary thinking just drives people mad sometimes, but we've had great growth, really since we've started. So the main goal is really just to continue growing,
Mhm.
as much as we can, bring on more people, having the right processes, the right people in place. I think the challenge to that will be having the right places and space. So I'm going to touch on this. When we moved in our new facility, let me touch on this. When I started the business from my house. So we had an extra space, kind of an extra living room on the front of the house. So that, my poor wife, that became my office. And so even as we grew and we hired people in the office, they were at my house every day from 8 to 5, in the living room. And so it's funny, we had little cubicles set up, and but it worked. And so when we moved into the new facility, it's just funny. I thought, man, we're not going to need all of this space. And so now we're to the point where the offices are full. And I kind of worry about space, as we continue to grow, but that's a good problem.
Yeah,
And so
right.
really just growth. And so we definitely have plans to expand. Like I said, we're based out of Columbus, Indiana, but right now we have commercial contracts in Minnesota, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, all over the map, pretty much, Michigan. And so we're eyeing some places to be able to expand that would help us, you know, uh, execute those contracts a little quicker.
Yeah.
But I think that'll be a challenge of, you know, obviously when you have remote locations, again, it goes back to having people who can abide by, our
Yes.
standards when,
Yes.
we're not around. So I think that's going to be a huge challenge. But we're ready for it. So
Well,
we're already
congrats.
eyeing some places. Yeah.
Yeah, congrats on the growth. That's awesome. And you just mentioned, managing people. Yeah, the making sure that we've got a good system in place to manage people to results. There's a negative term, out there, micromanaging, which has given a lot of people a reluctance to manage at all because, oh, I don't want to be a micromanager. I just want to be a leader. And the reality is every new employee needs to be micromanaged until they're delivering results. We just
Yes.
should, we just don't call it that word because people don't like that term. So,
Right.
everybody
Well,
needs
I
to be
think it's kind
managed to
of a,
results, right?
yeah. And I think it's kind of, again, for me, it was a learning curve because it's funny you bring that up because I actually had an employee with me pretty much from day one. But that was kind of something they touched on and had a conversation with me about was, well, you micromanage, well, you expect too much out of people. And so I'm a thinker. I don't come to rash decisions quickly. And so I thought about it for the next week and weekend, and Monday mornings we have our staff meeting. So, I really touched on that and said, what you said to, I call it delegation, right? Um, so some people call it micromanaging, which, there is such a thing, but, and what we do is we hire new people and we're trying to instill in them, hey, this is how we operate. This is
Yeah.
what we believe. We call that delegation, not micromanaging. And if, again, if you don't like it, then I guess this is not the place for you.
Right.
But until we're comfortable, right? Because, and here's the thing, it's stupid on a leader's end to just throw you to the wolves, right? And been there and done that. So that's where I really had to step back and just kind of look in the mirror and say, you know what, maybe I'm gonna start delegating these things to you, and as you become more comfortable in them, then I can step back, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we've kind of rebranded it around here, and so, but really, again, since we've done that, and we put people through training and whatnot, and work one-on-one with them when we bring them on, that again, it's amazing how far that goes. And they kind of take a new approach to it that, okay, this guy's not standing over my shoulder trying to tell me every aspect. But, again, in what we do, it's very tedious.
Yeah.
It's very easy to miss things. So we want to make sure that it's, done right.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people, they appreciate that. maybe not the micromanaging part, but the delegation part.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and to your point, back to communication, when we explain why we're doing it, right? It's like, hey, we're setting you up for success. We're setting you up to be able to run independently, and we have standards to meet. And so we're
yes,
going to, be over your shoulder until we feel comfortable that you're meeting those standards, and then we'll let you go. Right.
right, right. Well, and again, this was all a learning curve for me because, I've got one. I'll use Teresa, my assistant, and she's the type, and this is where I learned it, that she wants to know, why we're doing it,
Yeah.
which is so great because you explain, hey, this is the process. This is why we do step A, B and C, because it coordinates with the rest. And so it's amazing when you communicate that to people and tell them that it's a light bulb moment with them, and it's amazing to see the turnaround really because I think it confuses people that okay, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
And so then when you explain that, hey, this is why,
Yes.
and I've worked for people that I work for people and I know a lot of people that I don't have to tell you why, just do it.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it goes back to being a team and just communicating, just tell them why,
Absolutely. Yes.
and
Yes.
it goes so far. And
And
so
it's when they know the why, then also they come back and say, hey, um, now that I understand the big picture, here's 3 more areas that we could improve or tweak or optimize to get that
yes,
outcome you just explained to me.
yes, great point, great point. And that's where yes, and I learned that. Like I said, that's I learned that the hard way. And so it's amazing the feedback when I explained why we were having issues with whatever it was with
Yeah.
managing projects and the communication, the flow of them. So once we sat down and I explained why, well, all of a sudden you get all of this feedback from all of your team members, and so
Yes.
it has made it better. And I think again, we all know people that would offend, right? These people that maybe they think they know everything, and so they're not open to ideas. But I think by being as a leader, by being open to people's ideas, I mean, again, it's beneficial to not just the company but the whole team. I mean, it makes it better for everybody.
Yeah. Amen to
So,
that.
and I always tell people, I have an open door policy. Doesn't mean it'll always be yes,
Yeah.
because like I said, I like to put a lot of thought, probably too much thought into things, so I don't make rash decisions. But I think by communicating to the team as well that not just me, but everybody in a leadership position here, we're open to ideas, we're open to changes. How can we make it better for not only us, but more
Yeah.
importantly for our customer, right?
Yeah.
And so it's amazing how it's powerful. That aspect is really powerful.
Very cool. Last question here, Caleb. Jim Rohn, amazing business guru. He had one of his quotes was, "We become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with." So, as you think about that quote, what advice would you have for business owners who are trying to do it on their own?
Uh, well, I would definitely say surround yourself with like-minded people. So I had a friend of mine, a mentor, that used to tell me, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you what type of person you are." Right.
Mm,
And so that really goes far. And so that's kind of what, if you surround yourself with, idea driven, motivated people, then it's really contagious. You know what I mean? Um, so that would be my first um, point. And then secondly, persevere, persevere. It gets tough. It's not all it's cracked up to be. You know what I mean? I love it, but I mean, it's challenging. It really is. People don't see the late nights and the early mornings and all the craziness behind the scenes. But, again, by communicating all of this and following through and persevering, it gets better. We do what we must. And so those would be my 2 points: is just be around people that are like-minded, that are either where you want to be or they're going where you want to be,
yeah.
and stick with it.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds like you've been blessed with some incredible people in your business owner journey that have helped you along the way. If they were all here on the show today, what would you want to say to them?
Thank you. I most certainly couldn't have done it without all of these people. And, again, even just minor things, some of the stories I could tell, they probably sound, people would just kind of roll their eyes probably. But again, this is it's a challenge. I mean,
Mm.
every part of it is a learning curve. So just be able to have people to depend on, and bounce ideas off of, and hey, am I making the right decision, is worth its weight in gold. So Again, my hat's off to all of those people.
Fantastic. Caleb, it's a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having us.
Thanks for listening to the Self-Made is a Myth show. Please help spread this movement by liking and subscribing to our show and following us on Facebook and LinkedIn. To join our movement, go to bemadtogether.com. Okay, folks, that's a wrap. Please pay it forward and be sure to tune in next time to the Self-Made is a Myth podcast.